We're now going to zoom into that area in 2009 that was bombed by the LCROSS probe that crashed in the cabeus crater down near the South Pole to check for ice. And we'll use the same techniques that we've learned, obviously, to try to see if there's any structures there. So I labelled a few structures. As we see, this area has high resolution than the other areas, so we'll just compare that to the other areas. As we zoom in, it seems to be fairly clear. You see from about 113 kilometers up, looks fairly innocent. We just zoom in, again everything looks fairly innocent. But now, according to all those things, obviously we've learned from these other alien city sites and their a pattern of buildings and things like that. Just as we zoom into this area here, straight away we notice the zigzag patterns, the bright towers that are happening in the area. So once we recognize these very bright luminous towers, excavations, greenery in the areas of hillside, just do a quick measurement of that rod tower. The resolution is a bit less than mare moscoviense, so we'll have to use a bit more imagination here. So it's 300 meters. All of a sudden we start to see these patterns around craters, which we saw. So it's a constant alien pattern of having rod towers on the edge of craters. These are luminous. You can see the zigzag patterns. Again, the resolution is less, but we're now discovering a worrying trend, and the trend is we could be having heaps and heaps of alien cities here and rod structures. We have a bright rod structure around a crater entrance. That was a common thing as well. You see the rods there. We're actually at a very high distance, about 10 kilometers. We see rods coming out of these excavations there. We see greenery. These are very bright rod structures. There were reports by UFO conspiracy people this area was a bomb because there was very high UFO activity. So again, we're just thinking, okay, yeah, sure, okay, there's UFOs everywhere and aliens are everywhere and the population is millions, and go back to sleep. Well, guess what? Here they all are again. We're looking at all the towers. Just by zooming in and using the principles that we learned from the other craters, we see a rod tower there as well. The area is heavily populated with rod buildings, greenery, courtyards. We'll just zoom into this one here, check the hideout. This is now starting to get very scary. What we've learned is now becoming a valuable tool. This is about 300 meters, so the rod towers here are larger than the ones we saw at mare moscoviense, or the older systems at Tychos. That area is highly lit, luminous. These are very highly luminous, forming around the edge of the crater as though they're actually emitting energy. Let's now go in step by step as I've actually labelled these, and I just by accident browsed in this area hoping we wouldn't find any more evidence of artifacts or current alien civilizations there, assuming it could have been all those one areas, but they're not. So here we go again. We've got all these rod structures here. You'll see the dark green courtyards in the middle. You'll see the towers coming up. These are very evident on this crater here. Zigzag patterns there. These are all the patterns we learned previously, zigzags as well. Now things are starting to look very peculiar, because the explosion, if you actually look at it, YouTube itself, there was a bright flash. It looked like a nuclear detonation happening. We've got towers coming up here as well. There was a video of a UFO that entered that system, which I thought again could be Photoshop or someone's garage trying to make a popular video. This is 250 meters, so they're twice as tall as the ones at moscoviense. We see the zigzag patterns here in courtyards. The area is very dense. It's heavily populated, but we can't zoom in closer. They seem to blur it closer, but because we know the patterns of configurations, we do know these are rod structures. and I'll just quickly take through the other ones. So by just coming into that height, we realize again we see common patterns which we learned in the other craters. Here we've got many towers happening with courtyards. We just do a quick measurement of the most obvious one, which is in this excavation down here. We're looking at about 240 meters, so again they're a lot taller than the other ones we're used to. We're looking at about 4 or 5 or 6 there at the edge of that entrance there. They're highly luminous, and we're now starting to worry a bit because these are all the same structures we've seen before. Here we see the zigzag patterns, and obviously there's a very, very dense population in this area. I don't like to say alien population, but I don't think it can be anything else. It's not human, obviously. We wouldn't bomb our own human population. We see the towers coming above. I'm not finding these structures. It's a bit nerve-wracking to realise this area is highly populated now. That area, that tall tower could be two together are 300 meters. So this is a big city. These are very, very highly dense structures that have taken a long time to build up on the moon's surface. We'll just zoom to one other area that I've also highlighted. We sort of get down a very good resolution. Here we go. We now see all these towers happening. Shadows, very dense greenery around the crater entrance. Again, highly dense, populated. We use the same principles where we see a bright little type of rod structure. That obviously this is near a excavation, and these are very luminous towers. Here we go. Here's one good example again. The common things we saw are the luminous towers on the rod edges. Things are starting to get scary. We're now seeing these types of structures. Here we go again. It's very common around a crater edge to have very dense configuration of towers, which we see here. It's a very large crater. Just zooming in anywhere, we'll pick this one for instance. From about 16 kilometers up, obviously we can see structures there. Many rod towers, 1, 2, 3, and that one there forming a ridge. This area's got a lot more square configurations and courtyards happening. Yeah, quite scary. So the bombing was close to a very highly populated area. This is a bit less populated. It's more hillier, more barren. There's less green, fertile areas. Here we've got obviously square patterns coming up. We've got towers, courtyards. Again, all these patterns could be clearer seen if it was high resolution, but it's not. So we have to work with what we've got. Here is a very bright, luminous rod structure, probably emits some sort of light or energy here as well. Shocking to say, but the area is populated with millions, assuming they're still alive. After the 2009 explosion, here we've got rod towers there happening from that area of excavation. Again, from about 30 kilometers, you wouldn't be able to see anything. Here we've got a very good example of a excavation. We've got, once we see little towers and larger towers, we then realize something's happening. That's 400 meters, and we've got smaller ones. These are very, very big skyscrapers. These ones here are 300. These two I measured that previously. Just zoom into some other areas. The frightening thing is the area is very highly populated with alien structures, and we assume there's still aliens in these structures. Here we go again. Once we see these square areas, as we zoom in, we see similar features to the mare moscoviense system. These are two very bright towers here, shorter ones, heavy concentration around the crater rim in this area here. We'll just try to pick a clearer one to focus into a measure, but it's so dense. Here we go, one there on its own. it's a bright one. We'll just quickly use the ruler from there down to there. It's 190 meters, which is fairly large compared to the other ones we saw at mare moscoviense, but it's pretty short compared to the heavily populated area we have down here. Again, it's easy now to distinguish these types of alien patterns. We've got these rod towers coming up here. We've got excavations down there as well in the structure. You see the rod towers coming off the edge. The area again could be a population of tens of millions of aliens. We can't see right where the a missile was fired because obviously it's very black. Here we've got more towers, about 5 or 6 around that deep crater there. And again, if you go around this edge, they're all zigzag patterns, which are towers around the crater edge. Yeah, this is now getting very spooky, where we realise now we've opened up one area of high resolution, and by just picking any area, for instance, we pick this area down the corner. If we zoom in using previous principles we've learned on spotting these alien structures and how they are built and how they look from high up, straight away we come this area there. We've got a excavation happening, and we've got these bright rod towers around there that are highly luminous. This area up here as well. This time we're at a height of 25 kilometers, so if we come further down, we will now see these zigzag patterns. I'll go down. This area looks heavily populated right down here. Here we go. These are these towers that are coming up around there. Again, we've got these bright lines around the edges, which are very luminous. There's the groups of pairs of towers, 1, 2, 3 coming up. The area, here we go, 2 or 3 very bright ones there that are luminous. And again, if we compare, that area seems excavated, very flat around the edges of these towers. And I've just now labelled these areas for future reference, so just by accidentally zooming over and browsing from high up, learning our principles, we see there we've got numerous rod towers coming up. We've got many excavations happening. Here we go, we've got towers there, shadows. We see the zigzag pattern of courtyards happening, walkways. We'll go higher up again and try to find one other area that we'll just pick, and just straight away we should be able to see structures. And yeah, here we go again. This is a bit of less resolution, so we can't do this area. But obviously you can spot these bright structures, excavations happening. If we come at this area here, yes, here we go. There's 2 or 3 there, 2 or 3 there. Then we've got obvious square patterns happening like courtyards. Here we go. These are starting to resemble a mare moscoviense in their patterns, and where it gets a lot greener, obviously there's more crevices and vegetation. If you pick these 2 white towers, their height becomes 300 meters, so they're nearly twice the size as the other ones we've learned. Let me just go quickly label these. I've just labelled these 2 because these are very, very obvious, and we'll see the light and dark areas of vegetation. And again, we're shocked to find out the area is heavily populated. We'll pick the area down here now. We'll see again these rod-like structures at every corner we look at. Excavations, light greenery, dark greenery, squares, rectangles. We've just zoomed into one other area using these principles. We see all these rod-like structures again, shadows. These are very highly luminous in that area. Now this gets fairly green down here, and here we go. We see a lot of these towers happening again. We haven't found one spot that's not heavily populated. It becomes shocking to realize that now. We've got about 15 seconds left in this video, so this area we zoom into, we see towers as well. We see very bright luminous ones around the edge, which are emitting energy or some sort of light. These ones as well. And that's it.